Hello everyone. Welcome to Namaste SAP channel. As a developer working in SAP ABAP, you know how challenging it is or it can be to identify and fix errors in your code, right? That's where real debugging comes into play. Debugging is a crucial skill for any SAP ABAP developer as it helps you quickly identify and resolve errors in your code, ensuring that your programs are running smoothly. So, in this video, we'll introduce you to the basics of SAP ABAP debugging completely so that you can do debugging whenever you face any kind of issues or any bug. Okay, so you can do it standalone without any support. We'll cover topics such as like how to set up a breakpoint, how to change the variables at runtime, how to do a watch point, and thoroughly stepping through the code. We'll also explore some of the common errors that you might encounter when working with SAP ABAP and show you how to use the debugging tool to find and fix them. Whether you are a beginner just starting out with SAP ABAP development or an experienced developer looking to refresh your debugging skills, this video is only meant for you. By the end of this video, you will have a solid understanding of the basics of SAP ABAP debugging, and you'll be able to use the skills to debug your own code and with confidence. So without further delay, let's start. Let's get started with SAP ABAP debugging. So the agenda for this discussion are as follows, which I have set it out. Like we'll go one by one. First with the introduction, thereafter types of breakpoints, then stepping through code, analyzing variable values, and using the debugging tools. And the last one is your conclusion. Okay, so don't worry, guys. First try to describe in theory what are these, how to use them, where to use them. Okay, thereafter we'll direct jump to the SAP GUI and we'll see in practical. Right. So let's see what a debugging is, right? So debugging in ABAP refers to the process of identifying and fixing the errors or the bugs in the code, right? It involves using a debugger tool, which I'll show you, to pause the execution of code at a certain points so that you can check what values that variable is holding at runtime. Okay, and thereafter you can also change those values and continue the execution process and analyze the current state of program and make the necessary changes to the code as required as we have identified in the debugging. So guys, I have opened my SAP GUI. So if any of you do have access to SAP server and SAP GUI installed in your personal system, so I'll request them to open your SAP GUI as well and start coding with me as well so that you can grab very quickly. Okay, this is the SAP screen. Okay, I'm currently in SE 38, which is ABAP editor from where we used to do reports. Like we have to do debugging, right? अगर debug करना है तो we need something. So we need a report, right? So we'll create a report first and we'll debug it. So let us create a report first, है ना? Let's click on the create button, give a name like select an attribute like executable program, and yeah, click on the save button. Local object, it's done. Activate. Yes, this is my editor which got opened. Abhi we will not be writing code since you guys may develop a program by yourself or may generate a program. Our main focus of this content, to be very much specific, is to know how debugging actually works. So we'll quickly copy a program Okay, a very simple program, and we'll try to analyze that program, we'll debug that, and understand what are the types of debugging, types of breakpoints, and all those things. So there is a blog called Namaste SAP, which I have created. So you may refer this blog for doing some kind of programming in ABAP. There are certain contents on ALV, performance tuning, DDIC as well. So we'll just copy a program form here for our debugging prospect. So let's create this creation of simple ALV report. A link for this blog you might get somewhere in this video. Okay, we'll just copy this and paste it in our program. So it would be a quick help to start our programming. Let's copy this to there, yeah, and paste it. Got pasted, but I got some error over here. Uh, okay, you have to give some space to it. So this is a simple program. See what it is happening. It is selecting the data from your database table known as sbook and into the table its book. Without any where condition, it is fetching all the record from the database table sbook and it is putting into the internal table it sbook 1. I believe you know what is an internal table in SAP ABAP. An internal table, फिर भी मैं कोशिश करता हूँ to make you understand what an internal table is. An internal table actually holds the data in runtime, not physically. Okay, it actually holds the data in runtime. Whenever you are running a program, it actually holds the data at that certain point of time. And first point, second point is like it is only meant for holding multiple records. If you are having a single record, you can make a work area. It's a single line item, but in an internal table, as the name suggests, it holds multiple records. We'll see why I'm telling multiple records, why single record. We'll see the same in debugging. Okay, so there is a field catalog. This is a work area, as you can see, and this it field catalog one, this is an internal table. We are appending this field name and cell text temp. These are the properties for the columns in ALV. Okay, we are just appending it to all these values like field name and cell text temp. We are just putting this in this work area and we are appending this one by one into this internal table. And after once it is getting appended, we are passing this internal table in a function module use ALV grid display, which is used for showing an ALV grid. When we execute our program, pressing the F8 and we'll see an ALV output on the screen. So we need to pass this internal table to this function module, and this internal table only contains what? It only contains the properties like column name and column text, field name and the text, the short description basically. Yeah, we are passing this field catalog over here, and this is the ITS book one. It contains the data. Okay, let's see how it is. So we will activate this. So we have activated our program in SAP GUI, right? Now we have to learn different breakpoints to start it with. So first and foremost, it is a hard-coded breakpoint. Okay, what is a hard-coded breakpoint? A hard-coded breakpoint. See, this is a type of breakpoint that is manually inserted into the code by the developer, means we us, using the keyword breakpoint. Okay, this is very much important. When the program reaches this line of code, the execution is halted and the debugger is activated. So what it means basically, we have suppose 100 lines of code. Okay, and in the code, suppose you have written a keyword called breakpoint in line number 5. Okay, so when the compiler executes this program and it reaches the line number 5, it immediately stops and opens up the debugger tool for you. This is a hard coded breakpoint. Okay, Another important thing which you must note, that we should not use hard coded breakpoint. Okay, for the testing purpose you may use, but make sure to remove this hard coded breakpoint in your program, because once you move this hard coded breakpoint, and if you forgot to remove this and move your program changes to quality or in production, then it would create a really mess. Your job may be in danger then, because it would open the debugger console for the business user. Okay, you should never use it. So let me show you how this happens actually. So this is the program which we have copied from the blogspot. Okay, so let us first execute it and see what result it is coming. It would generally output an ALV, as I have said earlier, which is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, right? Okay, we need to activate this, or let's press go button. Okay, click on display and just activate. It's activated. Yeah, let's execute it. Okay, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns are coming and it is an ALV. Okay, now let's, as per mentioned, let's start with a hard coded breakpoint. Okay, let's write it break point. Okay, now see, till now I have not shown you how to open a debugger tool. Now I have written here a breakpoint, will act and will execute it. See what happens. It immediately opens a breakpoint, right? And if I press F8, it will execute the ALV. Okay. So what it is, and similarly, if we comment this and again activate the break, debugger tool will not be opened, right? So, so what it is happening behind? So you can see here is a breakpoint. Like this one is a session breakpoint, this is an external breakpoint. Okay, so we use a session breakpoint over here. What is a session breakpoint, what is the external breakpoint, I have covered in my topics. Just wait on, I'll cover everything for you. Let's click over here, first activate it. See, it's written session breakpoint. If you can see the tooltip of the cursor, it's a session breakpoint. Okay. So there is another method. You place the cursor over the select query. Just simply place the cursor over the select query and click on this session breakpoint. There are two approaches. Either you click the cursor on the line and click over here, or you can directly click on the pink kind of a template and just click it, and it would directly at the session breakpoint. Okay, similarly, if you wanted to remove it, you just click over it, it would get automatically removed, or you can just right click and delete the session breakpoint. Okay, let's see. So if I am adding a session breakpoint over here and click on the execute button, it will also open the debugger console. So there I have told you two approaches. One is just write a breakpoint, it would open the debugger console. Another is by doing a session breakpoint, or if you even, or if you put an external breakpoint, it will again open a debugger console for you. I remember, like in ABAP, we do breakpoint like this, right? This is a hard-coded breakpoint. In JavaScript, we use something like called as debugger, debugger, which also stops the line over there for the UI developers, especially. Okay, let's activate it. We need to activate it and click on the execute button. Okay, see, start of selection is the event of this programming, from where all the, like there is a cursor sitting on the database. It puts the cursor on the database. Okay, now it tells the database like, yeah, now the select query will happen. Okay, so that's why we have written start of selection. So data gets selected. Okay, see, I have pressed F5 button. Okay, and the cursor moves to the next line. Let me show you again. See, there is an option called debugger. There is an option called single step, F5. Okay, if you press over here, the cursor is going to the next line, and you can, this is a select star from sbook is a database table. Okay, into table internal it sbook. So it sbook one is what I have told you before. It, so it's an internal table which holds the data at runtime. Okay, So if we double click on it, we'll see the data which is currently it is holding on. Okay, if we double click on this, we can see the list of data. Okay, that is coming from the database table, and meanwhile we have put a debugger and see what it is holding on. Okay, and the breakpoint which we have written. So see, this is a breakpoint. Okay, now if you click on this debugger tool and click on this F5, it will go to the next line. So the shortcut key is F5, press the function key and you will go down one by one. This is one by one line is getting executed. Okay, one by one line is getting executed. And since it is a function module, I don't want it to get into it. So I won't be pressing F5. I'll just press F7 or F8 and the output will come. Okay. So we know what a hard-coded breakpoint is. So we just put a break and a point and it opens up the debugger tool quickly, right? And there is another process, like if you don't want it to use a breakpoint, then you can simply put like break, then your username, basically a SIU name, but it's not a SIU name, but your user ID. Suppose someone user ID is like XYZ. Okay, this is my user ID. So I'll just simply put break hyphen user ID. Then what happens now? Like SAP GUI, the log, it knows from which user ID you have logged in. Okay, so it will opens up the debugger console if you are using your with your own ID. Suppose this is your own ID 001. Okay, so it would open up the debugger console only for you. Okay, suppose I have logged in, my user id is xyz 002. Okay, and I am opening the same program, suppose z test debugging. Okay, but the user id which with which you have set the debugging is this. Okay, so it would not stop for me, it would not stop the program processing for me. Why I'm telling it's not stop? Because it opens up the regular flow of the program. You are stopping the program flow. It opens up the debugger console, right? So it is stopping. But if I'm using my user ID and I'm writing over there like break hyphen somebody's username like this, it will not stop for me. Okay, this is a safer side approach, but in general, for the live environment, we don't use break hyphen point in the real environments because it is very much dangerous. Like if you forgot to remove this, it would create a really mess. So better we can use safer side a session breakpoint. Okay, mostly we use a safer breakpoint. What is a session breakpoint? So you know what a session is in breakpoint, right? Like you opened up SE38, right? For debugging, we use SE38. So it's basically opened up a session. Maximum, I believe, there are 6 sessions that can be opened up parallelly in SAP GUI. Okay, maximum 6 at one time, not more than that. Otherwise, SAP will give you an error like maximum session has reached. Okay, so what is a session breakpoints? Coming to the point, like this is a type of breakpoint in which like developers during the debugging session, when the breakpoint is encountered, the debugger is activated. We have seen right previously, like we have put a session breakpoint on the code and we try to run our code and immediately the debugger is activated and the debugger tool screen comes into play and the program execution is paused. Definitely program execution is paused and the session breakpoint remains active only for the duration of current debugging session. So this is very much important, this is very much important, like the session breakpoint will remain active only till your debugging session is on. Till that session you are debugging, only for that period of time your debugger will over be there. Like if you log out, if you log out the SAP and you again log on to SAP and into the same program, you will not see the session breakpoint, it will get removed. Okay, it is only for that particular session. The moment you suppose another step, like if you have opened, sorry, let me show you once. You have opened up the screen, log on to SAP, then SE38 report, which opens up an session. You put session breakpoint, okay, you activated it, and your debugger gets open, right? This is what we are seeing now. Now, second step, you just log out and again follow step 1 and again follow like log on to SAP 38, sorry, SE38 report and opens up a session, and you will not see the session breakpoint which you have set earlier. You, if you wanted to debug, you again have to set the session breakpoint. This is what it means. Okay, let's see in action. Suppose I put a session breakpoint over there, and if I'm executing it, it would open up the debugger console. Okay, if I'm executing the whole program in one go, it would execute and open up my ALV. Now suppose if I am just closing, if I'm logging off this from SAP GUI and again log in, okay, and opens up the same program, we will not see like this. You will not see that session breakpoint over there. It would appear something like this. Okay, the moment you open up, you logged out and you again open, because in case of a session breakpoint, the session breakpoint is present only for that particular session the user has logged in. Okay, you will not find it again. Now coming to the next portion, that is an external breakpoint. This type of breakpoint is set in an external program or system such as SAP GUI that we are using, or an external debugger. It allows the developer to debug a program that is running in a separate system or process. Okay, that is running in a separate system or process. To be more specific, like this kind of a breakpoint, which is external breakpoint, this allows you to debug code in an external system. Okay, these are used when you wanted to debug a program that runs in different system from the one where the debugging is running. Like, to use an external breakpoint, you must first set up a remote debugging session between two systems. Okay, two systems. This is done by creating a debugging configuration in the SAP system where the program is running, and then starting the debugging session from the SAP system where the debugger is running. It might sound a bit confusion, but it's not that. It is simple. Once the debugging session is set up, you can set an external breakpoint in the program code. This works the same way as a regular breakpoint, but instead of stopping the program execution in the same system where the breakpoint is set, it sends a message to the debugger in the other system, which then stops the program execution and allows you to debug the code. It is very useful, like it is a very useful thing when you are working with like a multiple or a complex system where it involves multiple servers and systems, and you need to debug a code that runs on different systems from where the debugger is running. Okay, let me show you in the PPT itself only how it happens. Suppose I have server A. Okay, server A, and here all my code is there, all my backend code is written. Here I put a external breakpoint. Now I have a server B as well, and between them there is a, between server B and server A there is a configuration, okay, which has already been set up, okay, so that server A and server B can talk to each other. Now in server B Suppose I have used some kind of function module, remote function module, okay, or say some action is performed, okay. This action will trigger a message to server A, okay. And from the server A, suppose you are accumulating all the data and putting all those data to server B. Now if you wanted to debug that, and then you have to put an external debugger in server A. When the server B will try to connect with server A, and if it found there is an external breakpoint set over there, then it immediately opens up the debugger console for you. Am I clear? Moving on to the next, that is stepping through the code. Stepping means going line by line, one by one. Okay, let's step in. So the first thing is F5, the function key which I was showing you or pressing for the debugging. This is the first. So this function key allows you to execute the current line of code, okay, and then pause the program execution to the next line. If you press F5 to step through the code line by line, so you can use F5 to step through the code line by line. So it's only useful for line by line execution, okay. Suppose you have a small program, okay, and suppose 100 or 50 lines of program, and there is a bug in line number 30 to 40, okay. There are certain bugs which you need to fix out. You need to check what data it contains, okay, and thereby you need to debug that case. So what you do, you just quickly press the debugger, session debugger in line number 30, and the debugger tool console will open up, and you just press the F5 function key, and the program execution will happen line by line, 30, 31, 32, 33, and the series go on, okay. And you have to be very much careful, like if there is some kind of a conversion exit or some BAPI or a function module standard one, if you keep on pressing the F5 button, and those function module are a standard that are provided by SAP, so you'll go very much deep into it. So you need to be very much careful when to use F5 function key, when to use F6, when to use F7 and F8 respectively. We cannot use F5 every time, okay. So we will be using F5 only for line by line execution for our code, okay. Now moving on to the next, which is F6, that is a continue statement, okay. So suppose this is a function key resumes program execution from current line of code until the next breakpoint or end of the program is reached. You use F6 to skip over the lines of code that you do not need to debug, okay. This is only used for the skipping purpose, okay. F6, that means continue. We'll show you how it happens in SAP GUI in debugging. Also, another point regarding F6 is that it is also known as step over, okay. Step over, that it allows you to execute the current line of code and move to the next line without stepping into any subroutine or a function module that may be called by that line, that may be called by that line. Am I clear? It is step over, okay. This means that if the current line calls a subroutine or a function module, F6 will execute that line and then move on to the next line without stopping in the function module or the subroutine, okay. F6 is very much useful when you wanted to like quickly move through the code and focus only on the main program logic, okay. Now moving on to the next, which is your F7, okay. Like this function key allows you to return from a subroutine and calls a function call and resume program execution at the calling statement. Use F7 to exit from the subroutine or a function module and return to the calling program. So what it is. F7 is known as step into. As I mentioned, step 6 is step over, F7 is step into. This allows you to execute the current line of code and step into any subroutine or function module that may be called by that line. This means that if the current line calls a subroutine or function module, F7 will execute that line and then stop at the first line of the subroutine. Okay, allowing you to step through the code inside the subroutine. Am I clear now? F7 is very useful. Like when you wanted to debug a code inside the subroutine or a function module, or you when you want to track down errors that may be occurring inside these modules. Okay. Suppose you have a program that calls a subroutine, okay, to perform calculation. And if you press F6, when the program reaches that line that calls the subroutine, it will execute that line and move on to the next line of code without stopping in the subroutine. Okay. If you use F7 instead of that, it will execute the line and stop at the first line of the subroutine, because F7 is what? Step into. Okay, focus on it. If you press F7 instead, it will execute the line and stop at the first line of the subroutine, allowing you to step through the code inside the subroutine and debug any error that may occur over there. I hope I am clear now. Both F6 and F7 are useful, and in interview they might ask like what is the difference between F6 and F7. Please don't get confused. The funda fox is F7 is only used for step into and F6 is step over. It will help you to remember that quickly. F6 allows you to move quickly through the code, while F7 allows you to step into the subroutine and function module to debug their code. Last but not the least is your F8. Okay, so when you press F8 during a debugging, the system will execute all the remaining lines of code in the current subroutine or a function module and then return to the calling program. This is very much useful. Okay, this is very much useful, and this is also known as step out. Okay, like if you wanted to execute the whole program at one go and you wanted to end stop at a particular line, just press F8. It will execute all the line at one go and will stop at the particular line in which you have put a session debugger or an external debugger. Okay, this allows you to execute the code until the end of the current subroutine or a function module and then return to the calling program. It can be useful for quickly skipping over code and that you are not interested in. Okay, obviously like there are some scenarios if you have some lines of code, like there is no issue in first 100th line, but you wanted to execute all those lines at one go and wanted to analyze the line from line number 101, then this is a very important F8. Let's see in action. So this was the program that we were working on. So the only change which I did, I have just add one function module over here. Okay, this is nothing. It calculates the date basically. Okay, this is a function module. Simply you just have to pass a date over here. Suppose I am passing side item. Okay, side item means the current date, and it would increment my date by 1 day, 1 month, and 1 year. You will get my date if it is today's 4th May 23, then it would get incremented by 1 day, 1 month, and 1 year. This is a plus sign which means incremented. The main intention behind using this function module is because I need to show you the difference between F6 and F7, which many developers are still confused. They don't know how to use it. Okay, and yeah, F5 and F8 too. So let's do this in action. Let's activate this. It's activated. Okay, let's put a debugger over here and click on the execute button. So observe this very carefully. This is the very important step. So what we do, we click on the F5. Okay, So what happens? It goes to the next line. Again, if I press F5, again next, again next, again next line. So we are going line by line. Okay. See, field name, field value, and it is appending one by one. We can see F4. This get appended now. Passenger and passenger name will get appended to IT field catalog one. See, I'm pressing F5 line. It is getting executed line by line. Okay, now see, this is LDate one, which is having zero value, null value. This is side item holding the current value. Now if I press F5, this value get transferred to this LDate one, value is getting assigned. Okay, now we came across a function module. Okay, now here is an important thing. तो अगर कोई function module आप observe करते हो, this is a standard function module, right, by SAP, and there is no need to debug and get into a standard function module, right, because that is SAP provided by the SAP one. So if it is, we need to analyze our custom code. If there is any kind of a issue, it may happen in my custom code. Okay, but this is a function module. I am not interested to debug this lines of code. Now what I can do, I just wanted to go to this lines of code directly. Okay, then what I can do, I wanted to execute this line. I wanted to execute this line and wanted my cursor to reach from line number 49 to 62, executing the function module in one go. I'll simply press what, F8. See, edate is coming over here. That means this is the edate value and this gets executed. Okay, and my cursor reached over here. Okay, this is F8. So we have covered F5 and we have covered F8, right? Now we'll cover uh, F6. Okay, now another thing, if I place, now if I wanted to reach line number 49, I'll just simply put my cursor in line number 49, go to debugger and click on the go to statement. Okay, see the cursor comes over here. So it might happen, if you wanted to go back few lines upwards and start debugging from here, we can do this by using the continue statement. This is very much important for interview perspective as well. Interviewer asks go to statement. What is a go to statement? What is the shortcut key for that? Okay, you can easily tell. It can go backwards as well. Okay, if you wanted to debug certain lines of code and found that no, I wanted to go from line number 60 to line number 50, I can go to that line. You just have to place the cursor on that line and click go to debugger and click on the go to statement. Okay, now let me show you what is F6 and F7. Suppose I am clicking F5 over here. Okay, it comes into the function module. This is a standard SAP function module. I am pressing F5, F5. Okay, now here in line number 61 you observe that there is a perform. Okay, and this perform has been written by some other developer, suppose, and I don't want it to get into this. I don't want it to debug this perform, this subroutine. Okay, instead what I wanted to is, I just wanted to go to the next line, suppose line number 63. Okay, I wanted to execute this perform at one go and wanted to come to line number 63. I don't want it to step in this function module. Okay, I wanted to step over this function module, as I have told you. I will just click on F6. See, it step over this function module. Okay, it does not go into this. Now suppose again I am pressing my I am putting my cursor over here, going to the debugger tool, debugger tab, and clicking on the go to statement. Now I will go, suppose now don't want it to, this is a subroutine, right? This is a function, rp underscore cal date interval. So by pressing F5, suppose I have come into this function module, okay, the source code, but I don't want it to get into this. I just wanted my cursor to get to my call program. Okay, this can be easily done by pressing F7. See, the cursor returns to this line. It executes this everything at one go and comes to this line. This is the basic difference between F6 and F7. Hope I am clear, guys. Let me know if you are facing any kind of issue or any suggestion you required or any confusion you are still having. I'm available to answer. And I'm pressing F8. This executes. Now coming to our last topic, that is analyze variable values, which is very important, and honestly many developer don't know the clear concept of this. The watch point is the hero material, I must say, in debugging. Everyone do F6, F5, F8, F7, but watch point also plays a key role in analyzing the variable values. Okay, so let's start. Let's know what a watch point is. Okay, watch point. Let me highlight it. So, as mentioned, a watch point is a tool in our debugger, okay, which is used to monitor the value of a variable or an expression during the execution of the program. It allows you to set a breakpoint that is triggered when the value of the variable or the expression is getting changed. Okay, if you are pressing F5, F6, F7, you can constantly see what is the variable value. Like if you are double click on the internal table or a work area or a variable, on the right hand side you can directly see what result it contains, what value it contains, right? Let me provide you an example. Suppose you have a program that performs complex calculations, okay, and you suspect that there is a specific variable that is causing an error in the calculation. Okay, more specifically, if I tell you, suppose you have a, I will go into the practical, I'll show you how it happens. Suppose I have a loop, I'll do a loop over some internal table, and it contains some thousands record, and you found that in one of the record you suspect that it is causing some kind of a issue in calculation. Okay, and to debug that issue you set a watch point for that variable. Okay, on that variable that you suspect is causing the problem. Suppose there is a material number, okay, material number 100, and you found that for material number 100 there is a plant that is maintained. Suppose it is 001. Okay, and you found that out of 10,000 material, 7,000 plant, there is only this combination. This combination is getting locked, or this condition is getting failed. Okay, now in order to resolve you have to debug a specific, like this condition, like based upon the variable values you have to debug it. This can't be achieved by F5 or F6 or F7. You have 10,000, 20,000 of record. You can't be pressing F5, F5, F5 again and again. You can't loop over F5 1,000 times, right? Or 10,000 times. In real world scenario, this exactly happens. There are lakhs of record and the issue comes in one or two records. How to get into that specific record at one go? Their watch point plays a significant role. Okay, to set a watch point you have to navigate to the variable declaration in the code on the right hand click. From there's a context menu, and you have to click the create watch point. Okay, I'll show you how it happens. So this was our program. Okay, let's we have collected the data in this internal table it s book 1. Okay, so let's loop over it. Loop at IT boost into data WS book 1. Okay, this is the inline declaration, guys, into data. Okay, and if sorry, and loop. Now it is iterating. It would iterate number of times the number of data it is holding. If it is contains 10,000 records, the loop would iterate 10,000 times. Okay, so suppose I don't know what value it has. Suppose there is a book ID So it is activated. Let's execute this first. Okay, let me put a debugger over here. I'll show you how to do a watch point and how to create it, है ना. So as you can see, यहाँ पे आपका 97,474 records are over there. Okay. uh, Let me get into this. Suppose अच्छी तरह से समझना इस चीज़ को, that there is a bug. Suppose there is a bug in this number of line. This is row number 44,718 number line, and there is an issue in this number line. Okay, what is the issue? Suppose for this carried ID LH, for the cornet ID 402, customer ID this, booking ID this, there is some data related issue for which some calculation is getting misbehaved. It is not working properly. Assume. Okay. So what you have to do, if you want it, our earlier approach was pressing F5, F6, F7, F8. If you try those approach, it would take you how much time? 44,000 times you have to iterate over this loop and end loop. Thereafter, you would have coming to this number of row to identify, okay, this is the row and this value it is coming. Okay, it is quite impossible to debug and analyze looping over to this number or looping one by one. Okay, so quickly if I say you, okay, there is a process to identify this cornet ID 402, booking ID is this. So suppose booking ID is this, I will write this. I wanted to loop over this internal table ITS book 1. I'm least interested about the record from 0 to roll number 44717. I directly want my debugger to be over here in 44718 when this line should come. So remember this value, guys. This is 376. 376 is the value. Let me execute it much more further. 376, I believe this should be unique custom ID. Okay, it would, let me filter it out then. Okay, there are 24 records. Okay, now suppose, yeah, we can go ahead with this only. 376, we directly wanted to go to line number, go to this number of line where customer ID is 376. We don't want it to loop over all those things. How to do that? Initially you have to go to breakpoint. Okay, this is create breakpoint, line breakpoint. Okay, there is a watch point. Let me find out. Okay, see, there is a watch point. Click on it. Okay, and I'm just doing a F5 over here. See what is this? Is this work area contains the first iteration, data of the first iteration. Now I am putting a watch point over here by clicking on the watch point. What is the variable name? My variable name is W underscore S B double O K 1, S book 1. This is the work area, right? What is my condition? My condition is S W underscore S book 1 hyphen custom ID. Na, it was, I forgot, CUS custom. I need to check that what it is. I forgot actually. What is the field name? Custom ID. Custom ID. Okay, 376. Create a watch point. S book 1 custom ID. Just this is the condition, and it is my 376, है ना, 376. Okay, cannot create watch point, error in condition. Okay, there is some kind of error. Okay, spacing issue. Now I directly wanted to stop at that number of line. Now cytobase is 1, I will go cytobase is 2, cytobase is 3. Cytobase actually it holds the number of iteration of the loop. Okay, it is looping over to my internal table, and the count is being hold over in the cytobase. So let's present direct F8. Okay, voila, see now the cytobase is 7558. So what does it mean? 7558 iteration SAP does for you, and it stops the debugger. It stops the looping, not the debugger. It stops at exact custom ID 376. See, this is the beauty, guys. This is the beauty. Many developers don't know how to do this. Many developers know. So it iterate for from 0 to 7554, 7550, 57th record. It iterates and stops for you at line number 7558. Okay, for you at the condition which we have set in our watch point. What is the condition? That custom ID is equals to 376. Now if there is an issue, you can easily analyze what is the issue. Suppose invoice number may be a mistake, the data should not come like this, it should be something different, or it may happen some special character has come for this particular record. Then you can analyze this further, like it may have happened that user has make an incorrect entry in the database table, that's why that has been flown. This is how you analyze it. So watchpoint is a very powerful tool. Okay, watchpoint is a very powerful tool. So we can press F8, it directly goes to this. Delete all breakpoints. It will delete. It deletes all the breakpoints. See, breakpoints are deactivated. The moment you press, see again a watch point has been reached. So sorry, the watch point has not been deleted, but the breakpoint, the session breakpoint that you have added now, those gets deleted. Okay, even if you press F8, it is coming. Watch point has reached. That means what? See, the values are getting changed, but the custom ID is 376. 376. For the custom ID 376, there are many data, 24 data that I have showed you, right? So it would stop. The watch point will reach 24 times over. So that was all about watchpoint, guys. I hope you have understand what a watchpoint is and how to set a watchpoint. Okay, we have covered all the debugger tools like how to set up a breakpoint, watchpoint. Okay, there is a call stack which I will show you. So if I go to desktop one, we can see that there are some kind of a variables, locals, globals. These are getting populated. So we'll cover what are these and when we use this. Okay. See, if we come to desktop two, okay, there is something called ABAP and screen stack, right? So what is a stack? The call stack is basically a list of all the active functions called in my program. Okay, you can use it to trace the program's execution and identify the function that is like causing the issue. Currently, we have events, right? Start of selection is the event, so this is coming on the top of it. There is PAI module, that is something syst abron, and a PI screen. This is 1000. Okay, so basically suppose if I get into this F shift F12 and F5. So see, current call stack means the position of the call stacks rp cal date. So in which position, like what is the current status, in which program are you in? The cursor points to that you are in a function. Event type is function, you are in function. Yes, so I am in here. So if I click F5, just check the right side of the code. I am clicking on F5. I'll go into the perform. See, immediately this will get changed. See, form. I'm in form. See, this is a form, and adjust month is a form number, form name, adjust month. So call stack actually records. It actually handles the execution process. Okay, it actually handles the execution process of above. Okay, let me go to standards. So it has certain variables, like you can, let me F7 first. Let me get out of it. If you wanted to change something, suppose it is JS, you can change it to DL as well. Okay, you can change the value at runtime and can play with it. variables. There are local variables that are defined. Okay, there are certain global variables. What are the global variables? Like, see, these are the at a global level that they are defined. The IT book one, this is this, and there I have defined a work area over there. See, these are all global. IT book one, IT field catalog, W, all the variables which are defined in my program level now, they are coming to the global variables. Okay, so and what else? Structure, tables, object details, watch point, breakpoints. Okay, there is some watch point information is captured over here. Okay, so we don't use all these things. Okay, we don't use. They are system generated. Main important thing is like in desktop 3, the debugging process that I have showed you in step by step clearly. This is much more important. And sometimes we require the global tab, what are variables containing what data it is holding. It is useful for the analyzing purpose. Okay. So thank you for joining me today to learn about SAP ABAP debugging. Debugging is a critical skill for any developer working with SAP system, as it allows you to quickly and efficiently identify and resolve issues in your code. During this video, we have covered a range of debugging techniques, including setting breakpoints, stepping through the code, analyzing variable values, and using debugger tools like WatchPoints. By mastering this technique, you will be able to quickly diagnose and fix issues in your code, reducing downtime and improving the overall efficiency of your SAP systems. Remember that debugging can be a complex process, and it may take time to and practice to become proficient in these techniques. But with dedication and persistence, you can become a skilled SAP ABAP debugger and help ensure the success of your organization's SAP system. Thank you for watching, and please don't hesitate to reach out to if you have any further questions and comments about SAP debugging. Please let me know. Thank you. Keep watching. Namaste SAP.